On today's show, we will discuss fallen Christian leaders and the impact that has. And later, we will have Kyley Longo join us to share a testimony about coaching in our area. Have you ever had someone send you a text or maybe a letter in the mail? Okay, maybe that's speaking to my age, but anyway, that just really spoke to your heart. It was exactly what you needed when you needed it. I just had this happen, and it wasn't the first time that it's happened for me, but always seems to be a big surprise. Like, wow, how did they know? Here's the thing, they probably didn't know. But we're just being obedient to that still small voice to send it to you. Hearing from God because He knew what someone else needed. I was questioning some things, and I hadn't told a single person how I was feeling, and out of the blue, I received this text message from a friend, and it was exactly on point with some things I was struggling in. Did she know? No. Did God know? Yes. It's so important to tune into His voice as He directs us. One, it shows that we are willing to be obedient even when we might not get it. And two, it encourages the heart of someone else. I know I've had a few times when I felt led to send a message to someone and was thinking, why? To later find out it was exactly what they needed. So I encourage you to not let fear or doubt stand in the way of saying something to someone or sending something to someone because you may not understand the why of it. When it's an encouraging word, something that is helpful, how can we really go wrong anyways? These words may be just what they need right in that very moment. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, "Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing." So a shout out to Bonnie Williams for being obedient. Thank you, my friend. We certainly need more of this. And we are just three ladies with big opinions, always backed by a biblical standpoint. So let's talk about it.
This segment is brought to you by Harry's Construction, whose motto is, "If you can dream it, we can create it." They are the kitchen and bath design experts, so call Harry's Construction for all your remodeling needs.
Next week, we're going to have my friend Sean Tice join us, and then we're going to have a discussion, does expected forgiveness bring about sin?
Well, I was just telling you guys, I started writing a book for fatherless guys over 16 years ago. This is the book right here. I brought a copy just to show you. But this book was birthed out of my whole story of growing up fatherless. And I grew up in Duncansville, Pennsylvania, actually Altoona area, but when I was a baby, we lived in Cross Keys Trailer Park in Duncansville.
All that and more coming up next week on Man Up.
Well, ladies, I thought this would be a fun question to get into.
Yeah, I don't like this question. When you sent it to us, I was like, ah.
Spiritual leaders who have fallen, who have done things that they shouldn't do. How do we react? How do we respond? How do we get through it?
I think we need to remember that they're human and they go through the same exact things that we do. Are they held to a higher standard? Yes, but they have the same temptations. I'm not giving them a pass, I'm just saying. But I also feel like I fall, I take a few with me. A leader falls, they take many people with them. And I looked up this fact. It said it takes approximately 2 years for a church to recover from a fallen leader.
Isn't that incredible? I think that's an incredible statistic. Wow. 2 years.
Wow. Yes. That was shocking to me.
It's shocking to me.
So,
I had someone, there was someone in our life who was baptized by a person who then had a moral failure. The person that was baptized questioned whether their baptism was valid because of the moral failure of the leader.
Oh, jeez.
I know. We have no idea what we're doing to people.
Yeah.
We have no idea how much people look up to us, how much responsibility there is in being a leader.
Right. When I was studying some of this about spiritual leadership, and one thing that I've always noticed is, man, especially when it's like a mega church spiritual leader, we just hear it everywhere then.
Everywhere.
It's on Facebook, it's
Yeah.
sometimes on the news.
Yeah.
Like, they just want to pour it out to everyone so
Yes.
that everyone knows.
Let's
that
see
they're
how bad.
Christian.
Yep.
Look what they
They monopolize
did.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, our job as Christians is to bring restoration to the
Yes.
situation. And our response always needs to be from a biblical background and to heal their family. Not to necessarily, I thought this was interesting, it's not restoration to put them back into that position.
Right.
Not to say that that
Restoring
can't
them
happen.
to God.
Right.
Right.
Restoration to God, bringing forgiveness, bringing healing, knowing that they are loved. You know, you're still loved. You're still important to us. We want to see good for your life, but not necessarily restoration to the position that they were in. I think that's a big thing that we need to know as churchgoers, is that we are to be loving, caring, kind, and restorative to them in their relationship with Christ.
Yes. Yes.
In the relationship with Christ.
And I think too, because it's so visual when someone falls, we tend to focus on that instead of what's happened to the people in the congregation or who follow that person. And it can't happen quick.
Right.
Forgiveness is a process. Forgiveness is a process. And I wish it wasn't, but for me it really is.
Right.
And sometimes things really have to change, or maybe you need to change. If you don't like the way a church has handled something, it's okay to say, gosh, I don't like this. Not leave angry, but to go somewhere else and find healing somewhere else. Sometimes I think that needs to happen.
Absolutely.
Even, for the followers.
And I had seen something recently about all this, and it was so profound. It said, we should grieve, not gossip.
Yeah.
Yes.
Grieve.
Yes.
And that is so, so true. And another thing I wanted to bring up was everybody fails. Abraham, Moses, David. I mean, David
Gosh, yes. Look at all
failed.
of those. Yes.
And we read about it to this very day. We read about that failure.
That's right.
It doesn't disappear.
Nope.
We read about it, but yet that is not what God remembers him for.
That's right.
It's throughout all these kings that come after him.
Amen,
It's
Teresa.
no one was as good as David, basically. You know, they're all compared to him. And so, yes, you can be restored, and you can come back bigger, better, and stronger. But that, I feel, is up to you, to the leader. Do they want to admit?
Just to make a key point here, also remember that when you're in a pastoral position, that does put you in a different position than when we look at Abraham, David.
But
just because
they
of
were,
their position.
But I feel like back in that time, David was a little of both. Well, most kings were. I find that in those times, those kings determined whether the people were going to be rising high and praising God or spilling blood in the streets. I feel like they were held to a pretty high standard. In David's predicament, he was confronted by a prophet and his friend. You know what I mean? And they were friends, and and that's such a good story. It's such a complex story. We kind of gloss over it a lot, but
Well, we know the end of it.
we do.
Right.
We do.
In the midst of it, can you imagine the turmoil of those people? And knowing that your son is going to die and the reason he's going to die. He did not yet know the end of the story.
Right.
We have the whole entire story. Yeah.
One thing I would also say, for me, I've had to be careful that when I see things that I don't like or that I don't think are necessarily right, that's not my job to judge and be the voice to try to change it. If it's sin, it's sin, and let God be the judge and let him take care of things. You pray about it and, trust your leadership to hopefully do what is right. But as a church goer, it is not our job to bring someone's junk
to
the
impose
surface.
Justice.
Right. It really isn't. And that's a hard place sometimes for us,
It is.
myself, to be, because I'm like, but I know.
Which can cause gossip.
Right.
Right.
When you don't feel like you have any power over the situation, it can cause gossip. Absolutely.
And I also feel like even if we don't know what a leader is doing, there is a spirit that's brought into the congregation because we're hanging off of every word.
Yeah.
And it can affect infect a body.
It can.
It can.
Do you think we set our church leadership up sometimes for failure, setting them up higher, expecting them to be better than? Do you think sometimes we set them up for failure?
I know for me, I do set them at a higher standard. I do.
I do too.
I think biblically, that's actually,
They are called to that.
they are called to a higher standard. So, yeah.
But knowing that they are also a sinner
Right.
Right.
and that they're going to disappoint us
Yeah.
because they are human beings.
Absolutely.
I think grace definitely comes into it. But also our leadership, say the preacher and then the leadership of the church, those people have to hold the preacher up in prayer, in accountability, and if called for, in restoration.
Right.
Yeah, that's tough.
I mean, I watched a video not long ago, and a preacher was he was so belligerent and mean, and was
From the pulpit?
reviewing. It was a YouTube video
Okay.
about another theologian, and I just thought to
wow.
myself, my word, like, I just don't expect that
Wow.
type of behavior from a preacher. But maybe would I have maybe cut somebody down in that way? Possibly. But it was just shocking to me to see
Wow.
a preacher do that in the manner that it was being done. So
Yeah.
I don't know. But again, I don't know what the right is. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right for any of us to cut anybody else down, especially like that. It was very rude. That's why I'm not a fan of crude humor. But
Well, and I think of just one instance I can think of, Sandy Patty. She is a Christian singer.
Right.
And now she's older now, but I mean, my girls loved her. We went to her concerts, and that was before we had money to go to a concert. And she fell morally, but she repented and asked forgiveness, and she is singing Jesus now, you know?
So it's hard when, someone we look up to, we do put out a higher standard. Spiritual leaders make mistakes, but we have to remember they are human. Love them, build into them, encourage them, and bring restoration where you can. When we come back, we will have our guest for the day.
Hello, my name is Ann Byler. You may know me better as Auntie Ann of Aunt Ann's Soft Pretzels. I'm really looking forward to being with you in Altoona. I believe the date is October the 24th at the Prayer Breakfast. I'm going to be sharing my story, our story of faith and how we navigated through the twists and the turns of our business life and also our personal lives. So I hope that you come and join us at the breakfast. And until then, blessings to you, and I look forward to seeing you there.
When it's time for a new roof, Champion Roofing is your best choice. We're a certified award-winning roofing contractor, meaning your roof is done right the first time. Call today.
Champion Roofing, we're the solution.
Welcome back, and today we have a good friend of mine here with us. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure. So my name is Kyley Longo. I am married to Ryan McGarvey, and I have 2 children, Grayson McGarvey and Riley McGarvey, and I am a teacher, K-6 at Bellwood Annis, as well as the varsity girls basketball coach.
How old are your kids now?
Grayson is 8 and Riley is 3.
Oh my God.
So busy.
Yes.
Just a little bit busy with kids and coaching and teaching.
Right.
Okay.
How long have you been teaching?
I have been teaching and coaching going into, this is my 15th year.
Oh my goodness,
Wow.
I didn't know you had done it that long.
Yep. Wow. So I got hired straight out of college for both jobs. This is my 2nd year as the head coach at Bellwood Annis, and then I was Coach Sweeney's assistant for 13 years before that.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yep.
Do you color your hair?
Yes. Yes, I have an appointment coming up.
That's hilarious. So I hear you have a pretty cool testimony how this all came about.
Yes, so my husband and I got married and we bought a house in Altoona. I had already had my job in Bellwood, and we just kept feeling like we were being called to move to the district in which I teach. At the time, my son was about to turn 4, and we were going for our very first state championship in 2018.
Oh my goodness.
And so we ended up winning, and we got on the bus, and one of my kids from the back, they were just more excited to go to Texas Roadhouse. Right? So we're on our way there. And one of the kids from the back of the bus yells up, and she's like, "Hey, Coach." I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Do you journal when you read your Bible?" And I was like...
She asked you, she yelled it.
Yelled it from the bus. And I was like, "Yeah.
Okay, God.
I do." And she was like, "Will you teach us?"
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, "Yeah, I will." And so my husband, sorry, I'm getting a little teary, but
That's really, I mean,
yeah. So my husband and I like kind of looked at each other on the bus, and we were like, we need to seriously start looking. And it was the time where my son is like about a year away from kindergarten. Mm-hmm. I wanted to get him into the Bellwood School District. And
a great school district.
it's amazing. It is amazing. And love the community. And I will never forget when I first got hired, the best advice somebody gave me was, you have to infiltrate yourself into this community and they will welcome you, but you've got to knock down doors and show them that you care. And so we made that a priority.
Wow. You know, that's big that somebody was brave enough to tell you.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And so we did. We made that a priority for us. And so about a month goes by, and one of my players texts me and says, "Hey, Coach, I know you said you were thinking about starting to look for a house. My neighbor just put a for sale sign in the yard."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Send me a picture." This is like 10 o'clock at night. So they sent me a picture, and I was like, "Oh, wow, that's like a really nice house." And she was like, "Yeah, it's great. My neighbor, they're older and they have to move to Homewood. And so you should look at it." So right away, I texted Linda Del Grosso and I said, "Linda, you got to get me in this house." And so I went over my lunch, and the owner was not supposed to be there. And she was there. And the first thing she said when I walked in the door was, "Oh my goodness, you're the basketball coach." Oh. And I said, "Yeah, I am." And she said, "You have players all along the street. You have to have my house." And I just said to her, I was like, "I can't promise you that I'm going to be your highest offer because everything goes into a bidding war instantly in that area." And she said, "You write me a letter so that way I remember it's you." And so we wrote her a letter, and we just told her we felt like we were called her.
Oh my goodness.
And we got the offer, we got the house as the lowest offer, and we ended up moving to Bellwood, and then we had to sell our house. And that's where God really started to move, because I am not patient. That's not one of my skill sets.
Me either.
And I'm a planner. So when things don't go to plan, I can spin out. And it took 11 months to sell our house.
Oh my goodness.
And so we were there, just pure faith with 2 mortgages. We were blessed. My dad helped us so that way we could make it work. He was like, you need to be there. That's where you're supposed to be. I'll help you. You can pay me back when you sell the house. And so we were super grateful for him to be willing to help us with that. And then, of course, you know, the holidays are coming. And I'm like, oh my goodness, can I do this? Can I give my kids a Christmas? Like, you know. And Kyley, I know as a shopper, you'll love this, but I got a call and it was a former person that had looked at the house. They finally decided to buy it, and my closing date was Black Friday.
Oh.
And so I still got to take my kids, I still got to go shopping for my kids. And from that point on, the time that we were there through waiting for all of this, we started team Bible studies. We have kids that, you know, choose to come to church with us on Sundays. And we've just been able to pour into the kids that are open to being poured into and form relationships with them that have been really amazing.
Huge. It is huge. It is huge because, you know, my sons have had coaches, and what I see is that some can really leave a legacy and build into them, and others can choose not to. And what I hear is that you are choosing to, and it's so important.
Yeah, I mean, we love having the kids at our house. They'll call me, Coach, I'm hungry for hibachi. Like, come on over. I keep the ingredients in stock because I know they ask for it. They'll come over, they'll eat, they'll play games at my house. They come over and play with my kids. You know, and not every kid is comfortable with having those types of relationships, so it's certainly nothing that's forced. But
you're not just a coach, you're a life giver.
Yes.
You are a life giver.
You're building into them.
You are.
I mean, like I said, we love having those kids there. We love, it's been beneficial even for our family. Like, as much as we pour into them, they don't even know it, but they pour back into us, and they certainly keep me young. So I at least, when I have my middle schoolers in class and they throw out their lingo, I'm like, okay, I've heard this before. I think I can put this into context and know what they're talking about. But I mean, being there 15 years, I've seen my players in their weddings. I've seen them have babies. You know, and it's just, it's really, really something special. And so we're super grateful to be in Bellwood and the opportunities that we have, and just praying that God continues to use us. And
what are some of the negatives, or maybe even the positives, with coaching these days? How does it look different than it did 15 years ago?
It's definitely different. I mean, work ethics have changed, certainly. Expectations have changed.
Expectations of the players, the parents?
I mean, it's a little bit of everything sometimes, I think. And it's not all the way around. It's just there's, you know, expectations like, well, I should play. Well, you also have to work, right? And what I like to tell my kids, especially now that I'm running the program, is what you can do for me on a basketball floor is great, but I'm much more interested in you as a person. And the biggest thing that I've seen, and even I experienced through high school and college basketball, is you lose your identity in a sport. So you ask these kids when they go to college, like, oh, who are you? Oh, I'm so-and-so, the basketball player. Well, what happens when basketball is taken away from you?
Who are you?
Right. Who are you and whose are you? You know, like that's what I told my kids went through those state championship runs. I'm like, listen, I'm far more interested in where your eternity lies, because when I get to heaven and have 2 good knees again, like, we're hooping it up.
That's right.
And
that's
you need
right.
to be on my team, because I've seen you play. I'm not guarding you.
That's right.
Right?
Oh
and
my gosh,
so just having them understand, like, their identity is outside of basketball, and it's hard for them to get that, right? Like, they put so much stock in how they perform. Yeah, it's great, but I'm not going to berate you if you make a bunch of mistakes. Like, it's fine. We can fix that. But let's focus on your confidence. Let's focus on, you know, what do you know about yourself outside of basketball? And, you know, you have kids that have great confidence in themselves because they put a lot of work in, and setting those kids up for success to be able to handle a failure when it does come, compared to your kids that maybe have to work really, really hard and they still don't reach that level of success they want, but helping them understand, like, that's okay, because when you leave me, like, you can still go do anything you want to do. Like, you can conquer anything that you want to, as long as you work hard and you're, you know who you belong to.
Man, you.
Yeah.
I
Wish my kids had you for a coach.
I want to be on your team.
I know.
Well, I think it's important to know who you are, because sometimes that's the only positive they get from parents. Parents ride the coattails of their kids a lot of times.
Well, and it's also sometimes you see where parents will wrap their identity up in how their
Yes.
kid performs. And
So when they
you just want to
feel like-
tell them, like,
Yeah.
just enjoy watching them.
Yes.
Like, don't put so much stock in what they do. What they do on a court doesn't define you as a parent either.
Right.
Right? Like, love them
Good
through
or
it.
bad.
Right. Love
Good
them
or
through
bad.
it. Right? And so being able to carry yourself, whether it's parent or player, understanding that basketball is something you get to do and it's not who you are.
Right.
That's such great advice.
You're awesome.
You needed to speak this to me, though, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Listen, the only reason I get it is because I didn't have the experiences
didn't get it.
and I didn't get it as a player. And then when basketball was lost because of knee injuries and because of just college paths taking different turns and things like that, I remember sitting there like, what am I gonna do? And it came back to who I belong to.
That's who you belong to. That is the most important thing that you can know in this life. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing.
you.
I mean, I appreciate your heart so much.
you.
And I think you are doing a great job as a coach for these kids. And I think they're going to come back and tell you time and time again. So when we come back, we will have our tip for the day. This week on Let's Talk About It, we will discuss body image, and then later we will have Christy Bender join us to share a beautiful journey that she has taken.
We went for our 20-week ultrasound, and the doctors had found some abnormalities. And each of the abnormalities they found in and of itself might have been an incidental, isolated finding and normal. But they said when we see these together, sometimes it's a risk for genetic issues. So
all that and more on Let's Talk About It.
Made by Vogel is a father and son business that produces high-quality handmade wooden products such as cutting boards, bowls, bottle stoppers, and more. Products for sale can be found on their Etsy site or in downtown Altoona at the Clay Cup. You can't go wrong buying from Made by Vogel.
Driving around Altoona with my younger son Parker, anytime we see someone in need, he wants to give them money. The thing is, 9 times out of 10, I don't have cash on me, and then Parker feels bad we can't help. So I saw this idea somewhere recently and thought it was a pretty great idea. What you do is you grab a large Ziploc bag and you put a few things in it that would be a blessing to the person who is asking for help. Some ideas would be a small amount of cash, a bottle of water, a pair of socks, some toiletries, a non-perishable item, gloves, maybe a gift card. These are just a few ideas, and I'm sure you can think of a few more. But this way then you can keep that Ziploc bag in your car and have it available for the next time that someone is standing alongside the road asking for help. I know that my son is so excited to have this in the car so that the next time we are ready and prepared to help that person out. One last recommendation I was thinking about is when it's summer, be careful what you put in the bag because things could melt in your car. But other than that, let me know if you have an idea for your bag. And until next time, let's talk about it.